Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave. Today we're going to be reviewing my 2019-20 Premier League predictions. This video is going to be an absolute banger, so make sure you smash that like button and get into the comments below. What did you predict right and what did you predict wrong? And of course, subscribe to the Statman Dave YouTube channel with notification bell turned on for more goddamn brilliant content like this. Anyway, let's get this party started. So, let's dive into the video. My Premier League predictions for the 2019-20 season.
It's time for my 2019-20 Premier League predictions.
Just before we dive in, I lost my voice when I was recording this video. At the start of the season, the voice went, I was talking too much, and that's why I can hardly speak, but it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be absolutely fine.
First up, relegation. Make sure to get into the comments your predictions about the bottom of the Premier League. It is going to be feisty. But unfortunately, 20th, we're going to go with Sheffield United. Apologies to all the Blades fans out there, but there's a real lack of Premier League quality in their ageing squad. I do think Chris Wilder is an excellent manager, and his overlapping centre-backs in his 3-4-1-2 is a fascinating concept. But with the third highest average age in terms of starting 11 in the Championship last season, it's going to be a struggle for their ageing squad to step up to the fast pace of the Premier League. Their strengths do lie in central midfield with former Manchester United graduate Ole Norwood and of course John Fleck. The pair screen the back three well, whilst feeding the advanced wing-backs and the front three.
Well, we've got to address it. Sorry, Blades fans. I want to say that again. I am sorry if you support Sheffield United. That was a stinking suggestion from me. 20th in the Premier League. Got that completely wrong. Sheffield United, one of the feel-good factors of this season. And I think one of the big things that I didn't predict to happen was them moving to a 3-5-2. Mentioned there the 3-4-1-2. So Sheffield United were playing an attacking midfielder behind two forwards, and they switched that in the Premier League. The correct thing to do. We saw Wolves do that in their first season in the Premier League. Get a defensive midfielder in, two centre mids ahead. The 3-5-2 is one of the best systems to overachieve in world football right now. But we got some stuff right. A little bit of John Fleck, a little bit of Ole Norwood. Both of them have been fantastic in the Premier League. KDB is the only midfielder to have played more progressive passes than, of course, Ole Norwood as well. You look at some other stats. He switched the ball more than any other midfielder and has got the most passes into the final third. He has had a wonderful season, but the overlapping centre-backs has been absolutely fantastic. And if you look at the records, they conceded 2 goals fewer this season compared to last season in the Championship. So maybe next season, Dave, you need to look at that defensive record. Chris Wilder, manager of the season for me. What a performance he's done. Anyway, we've gone through that. That's the biggest one that hurt me. I'm sorry, Blades, again. I can apologise. Sorry, I was wrong. You guys were right.
On to 19th, the true Geordie is not going to be happy with this one. But losing Rafa, Rondon and Perez means the drop for the Magpies. You lost one of the best coaches in football and replaced him with Steve Bruce.
Bold predictions again. The true Geordie, in fact, was ecstatic this season. Not only did Newcastle stay up, but they could be getting in a sugar daddy to give them some money and sign the likes of Coutinho. And if you look at that expected points model, in fact, they'd put them 12 points worse off and actually 20th in the Premier League, with only Liverpool overperforming their points by more. This is a bit of an issue for Newcastle. We saw them in recent years, Pardew go on that incredible run, breaking the XG model, and then the season after them flopping and nearly getting relegated. This is going to happen with Steve Bruce next season, and you heard it here first. In terms of players that have come and really impressed me, though, big one in Saint-Maximin. What a player, what a signing he has been. Only Mohamed Salah has had more dribbles leading to shots in the Premier League than the Newcastle winger, and a player that's exciting and, you know, could play at a very higher level. Let's move on to the other team that we predicted to being relegated.
The last relegation place is a tough call. All 4 teams that I predict coming from 18th to 15th could be relegated. Brighton have made an interesting appointment with Graham Potter joining from Swansea City. Potter is a progressive manager, with his teams focusing on playing out the back and pressing. Of course, the issues for Brighton is that they've recruited for a different style of manager in Chris Hughton. It's always a problem when you go from one stylistically side of football to the other, which is what Brighton have done, counter-attacking to possession football, and that's why Brighton will finish in the bottom 3.
I'm so happy that Brighton stayed up. I think you look at Brighton as a side, they are arguably my second favourite team behind Manchester United to watch in the league. I think what Potter's done has been brilliant. You know, we talk about that flipping style, you know, moving from the defensive Chris Hughton football to Potter's progressive style, and the stats are absolutely fantastic. They've gone from bottom 3 in terms of possession and shots in the Premier League to top 8 in both. And Mopé has got as many open play shots as Anthony Martial, 5th in the league. Graham Potter's work has been fantastic. I think Brighton are only going to go from strength to strength under Graham Potter. I thought Graham Potter was a good coach. Now I think he's a fantastic coach, one of the most underrated in the league. You know, moving from a 3-4-2-1, 3-5-2, 4-4-2 diamond, narrow 4-4-2. The performances against Arsenal alone this season, they've just been fantastic. And I am happy that I was wrong. Brighton seems to be a really good project. The signings they've brought in this season have been very, very good. And, you know, I was wrong, but credit to Graham Potter. Fantastic, fantastic job.
On to 17th, narrowly avoiding relegation, is, of course, Aston Villa. I think they're just about better than the bottom 3. Pre-season suggests they'll play the same spine from last season. Their midfield trio of Hourihane, McGinn, and of course Jack Grealish should help them maintain the rhythm that they got last season. They'll offer a constant threat from set pieces. Conor Hourihane's delivery is absolutely fantastic. The Allied International registered 11 assists in the Championship last season, 8 of those coming from set pieces.
So let's take a look at Aston Villa. That was, you know, we correctly predicted them to be in 17th in the Premier League this season. You know, we talk about set pieces. They were a set piece threat, with only Liverpool and Man City scoring more goals from set pieces than Aston Villa. And I think they adapted to the Premier League really, really well with that 3-man midfield. And one thing that I've learned this season, it's not Hourihane, it's Hourihane. Thanks to the guys at the BBC for correcting me there, the comms guys. You know, I've got to improve myself in that ilk. But, you know, you look at Aston Villa, and I think the big thing that they improved was the amount of shots conceding on their goal. I think one of the biggest improvements from the restart was Aston Villa. They went from 20th in the Premier League in terms of shot faced on their goal to 8th. Big improvement. And I think you've got to look past one player, you know, one player that's carried them through. Jack Grealish, what a season he has had. Only Kevin De Bruyne has created more chances from open play in the Premier League this season. 1 of 4 of Villa's chances created was Jack Grealish from open play, a sensational player. And his goal on the last day of the season really summed up his performances, carrying Villa not only to a League Cup final, but staying in the Premier League. Jack Grealish, got to be on the radar for the big teams. One of my players of the season. And I think Aston Villa would have potentially done better had John McGinn not got injured. That midfield 3, quality. And I like Aston Villa, and I think they'll continue to improve under Dean Smith.
In 16th, I've got fellow new boys Norwich City, and 15th for Crystal Palace. Norwich did fantastically well to finish top of the Championship last season, way ahead of where they expected to be. They've returned to the Bundesliga this season and recruited Ralf Fährmann from Schalke and Josip Drmic from Gladbach. And I think these two will be really good additions. Coupled with Falke's tactics will be just enough to keep them in the Premier League this season.
Well, I was wrong. We had an adaptable manager in Chris Wilder, and it showed. You know, the league position, absolutely fantastic. Daniel Farke did not adjust his tactics. It was so easy to press Norwich out of the back this season. It's one of these things where you had to adapt. You had to change that structure. It was so simple. You attack behind their fullbacks, easy stuff. They just didn't adapt. And they were far too open defensively. But the worst thing is they had no fight. 0 points gained from losing positions in the Premier League out of 38 games. That is atrocious. And they conceded 8 more goals than the other side. We're talking about those 2 new signings, Drmic and Fährmann. They didn't adapt well. They played only 664 minutes between them. They had no goal scorers outside Pukki and Cantwell. No one scoring above 1 goal in the Premier League. They were the worst team in the league by points, by goals against, and by goals against.
With Roy Hodgson at the helm, I think Crystal Palace have bought one more season in English top flight. But the loss of Aaron Wan-Bissaka and even Michy Batshuayi will have been felt by Hodgson. I think the Eagles will have a long, hard season.
So let's dive into that Crystal Palace. I think they didn't reinvest in their squad. You're thinking they received more than 50 million. They spent less than 7. They picked up just 1 point from the last 8 games. We'll go on to the sack race in a minute, and yeah, maybe Roy Hodgson should have lost his job, but he's kept Palace in the Premier League for another year. This summer's going to be massive. Palace was so poor going forward in the Premier League. Without Zaha being that spark, they have been absolutely rotten. But let's move on to the sack race.
But I'm going to have to go for one. I'm going to go for Watford's Javi Gracia, because
we got ourselves a bingo! Now, sack race was an interesting one. Javi Gracia, you could see from the last 10 games in the Premier League from last season, I think Watford failed to pick up a win. But Watford is a club right now of a revolving door, 3 permanent managers this season. That is poor stuff from the board. I think Nigel Pearson potentially could have kept them in the Premier League if he hadn't fallen out with them, which is probably what's happened. But at least we nailed something. Javi Gracia, first to be sacked. Potential trip to Wembley didn't happen. A potential trip to the Championship did goddamn happen.
Bournemouth and of course Burnley out next. Both stable clubs who have kept their manager.
Bournemouth have always had an issue with their defence. This is a clip from last season when we were reacting.
But I kind of expected them to jump into that next bracket, that Europa League bracket. So Eddie Howe's got to do some work on his defence in the next season. Again, in 2019, the 3rd worst defence in the league, something that Eddie Howe needs to work on.
And you take that, the Bournemouth on average are conceding around 66 goals every time in the Premier League, and now they were misfiring. You take Callum Wilson, 0.2 goals per game, the worst since joining Bournemouth. Ryan Fraser, 5 direct goal involvements compared to 21 in the previous season.
Burnley expect Sean Dyche's men to have a much better start than they did last season, given that they've not got any European football this season. They're going to shithouse their way to a solid mid-table finish.
It's an interesting one. Again, classic Burnley this season. Chris Wood's been great. Again, we've seen the development of Dwight McNeil. I'd love Manchester United to sign him and convert him into a left-back, but more on Manchester United transfer stuff coming weeks on the Statman Dave channel. A reason to subscribe, Manchester United fans. But they're 7th in 2020 in the Premier League, and Sean Dyche has just shown great leadership and great management. He's built a great core there, and Burnley need to sort that out. That is the big thing, and there's rumours that he might leave, which would be disastrous for Burnley. If they lose Dyche, they are going to get relegated.
For me, though, Southampton will overachieve based on their expectations and where they finished last season. I expect them to compete for a top-half finish, all because of Ralph Hasenhüttl.
Well, I think, you look at the overachievement in the Premier League this season. It's one of these ones where you look at Sheffield United, I think they're the biggest team that's overachieved, and I think you look at Southampton. I think from what they've got, what they've done, it's interesting. Halfway through the season, though, I look like a right idiot when they lost 9-0 to Leicester City. But since that day, they've played 28 games in the Premier League. They've won 13, drawn 5, scored 42 goals, with only Liverpool, Man City, Man United and Chelsea having won more games in that period. Ralph Hasenhüttl, what a manager he is. The way that he's shown to fight this problem and then, go through it and improve these players. Like, the player that we've got to talk about, standout player for Southampton and in their overachieving, is Danny Ings, 22 goals in the Premier League. In terms of a player that I'd say an unsung hero, James Ward-Prowse, captain for Southampton, a tackling machine averaging nearly 4 per game. And you know what? Liverpool, perfect signing. He's basically like Jordan Henderson, but can deliver from set pieces. His stats are very, very similar. He's slightly more progressive than Jordan Henderson. He's got a slightly better expected assists. His tackle numbers and possession one numbers, very, very similar to the Liverpool captain.
Last season's overachievers Wolves could struggle with the added Europa League fixtures.
I think credit to Nuno Espirito Santo and how he moved the squad on. Adama Traore, though, has been so good this season. The best right winger in the league. No, traditional right winger. We're not talking Mohamed Salah goal scorer. We're talking winger. The improvement that he has made as a player, credit to Nuno Espirito Santo. I think we did all right there. I think, generally think we did all right there. But next
season,
I
in
don't think
8th
we
and
did
9th,
very
I
well.
predict West Ham United and Leicester City. Yeah. Starting with West Ham.
They started so well in the Premier League. If you remember, they were in 5th position for a long time. And then they absolutely dropped off. It was sloppy. The defensive side of their game was so poor. And Big Davy Moyes had to come and save him.
But of course, Brendan Rodgers is a quality coach. With the likes of Ricardo Pereira, James Maddison, Yuri Tillsman and Jamie Vardy at the club, Leicester still have a side good enough to finish in the top 8.
I just laughed to myself here because, over the season, Halrahan and Tielemans nailed it, guys. Get in the GGs in the chat, guys. Get the GGs in the chat. I think injuries really halted them. The size of the squad really halted them, especially post-lockdown. Too much football. James Maddison is so crucial. The amount of chances he created for that team was so important. But also the progressive play, deep in midfield, progressing the ball forward, really missed. And I think if Maddison's fit for a season, Leicester City, finish in the top 4. It's as simple as that. With Jamie Vardy flying, Premier League top scorer, 23 goals. What a season. 33 years old. Vardy is still having a goddamn party. But now let's move on to the serial underachievers.
But I think Everton will win the Everton Cup this season. The signings of Moussa Keane, John Philippe Gambin, Dribbble Sidibe will make Everton a much better side.
The serial underachievers, Everton. They really let themselves down this season. Marco Silva got hooked. And of course, the great Carlo Ancelotti came in. I love Carlo Ancelotti. If you haven't read his book, he talks a lot about pasta and how once he looked at Yuri Zhirkev and thought he was a piece of steak. But in terms of those new signings, they didn't perform. Sidibe, Moussa Keane, Gambin, none of them played over 2,000 minutes. And lockdown really killed Dominic Calvert-Lewin. who's directly involved in 5 goals in his last 7 games before lockdown and 0-8 since. But expect Carlo to continue to improve this side. Carlo is a wonderful manager, wonderful man manager, great bloke, great tactician. They'll be good next season.
Time for the race for the Golden Boot. I think Arsenal's firepower and the ability to feed Aubameyang will win him the Golden Boot.
Well, not too bad, not too bad. We predicted Aubameyang to finish top. He finished second with 22 goals. Of course, Jamie Vardy was the actual winner with 23. I think if Mikel Arteta starts the season at Arsenal, Aubameyang holds the Golden Boot. Arsenal fans, I'm really happy with how Arsenal are playing at the moment. I enjoy their football. But credit to Jamie Vardy. Did really well.
Well, it's time for the top 6. They're a team packed with massive potential, whereas their rivals have bought players for now. It's a better position for the club long term, but not this season, and that for me puts Chelsea in 6th place.
Well, wrong again. Not by many points, just 2 off there. Lampard did really well. It was surprising how well Chelsea adapted. I think the youth that he played, Mason Mount started the season really well. Abraham started the season really well. Chelsea looked like they were flying. But in terms of their league position with 66 points, 4th in the league, the lowest points total for 4th place since Liverpool in the 97-98 season. Going forward, they were excellent. The 2nd highest XG in the league. Abraham with the highest non-penalty XG plus XA per 90 among players under the age of 23 in the league. But they need to work on their defence. That is the big thing for Chelsea. Lampard's issues at Derby County, when they got transition, the space behind the fullbacks was too big. We saw West Ham United back end of the season really open them up. Liverpool doing the same thing. They need to improve their defence. That's the big thing. Fullbacks, defensive midfielders, and centre-backs. I think they're the areas that Chelsea really need to improve. Where they've already made signings that are absolute fire. 28 goals from Timo Werner from the Bundesliga. 45 assists in the last 2 seasons for Ajax for Hakim Ziyech. Great signings. And Chelsea are going to be a force next season without that.
Now on to 5th. A club that's had actually a really good window. Ceballos from Madrid, Pepe from Lille upgrades Arsenal's attack and midfield massively. However, there's a glaring problem at Arsenal. Their defence. Koscielny's gone, Mustafi's woeful, God knows why they let Saliba go back on loan to Saint-Etienne, and that is why Arsenal are in 5th.
Not having William from Saint-Etienne, Saliba with that, crazy stuff from Arsenal. If they have him, they potentially could have been top 4. If they'd started with Arteta, they would have been top 4. I think the attacking signings, we've seen Dani Ceballos in the last few weeks actually come good and look really good next to Granit Xhaka in Arsenal's 3-4-3. Got a video linked up here of them. Go and check that video out. But it seems like Arsenal didn't quite get going at the right time. And it is interesting. I think next season they're going to be exciting. I think you're looking at Pepe, you're looking at Saka, you're looking at Lacazette, Aubameyang. How they finish the season in wonderful form. I absolutely love Kieran Tierney. And I think next season he's really going to come good. And Arsenal are going to progress. But, we've got a little bit wrong with Arsenal, a little bit wrong with Chelsea. Now let's move on to the top 4.
Manchester United have addressed their defensive issues with the signing of Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I don't think that's enough, though, to surpass Spurs.
That is a really interesting one. Just looking at the stats, Man United conceded 54 goals in the Premier League in the 18-19 campaign, the 11th best record in the league. In 1920, they conceded 36 goals, the 3rd best record in the league. And those 2 defensive signings have massively helped Manchester United. But as well, you've got to look at the January arrival of Bruno Fernades. He fired United to 3rd. Since his debut, the most goal involvements, 15. And United have picked up the most points in that period. Bruno Fernades carried United's attack. The way that he controls the play and how he opens up space and, his consistency when he's flying, goal scoring, creating, absolutely. He is a world-class number 10. He really is. A modern-day number 10. Does it all. But also you're looking at, how United have evolved under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, finishing 3rd, averaging 2.3 points per game against the top 6. That's a great record. Conceding those 18 goals fewer than last season. And a front 3 with an average age of 21, scoring 44 goals.
By signing Ndombele, Spurs have completed their midfield. I expect Poch to finish 3rd.
So that's a frustrating one. Pochettino is one of the best coaches in world football. But it felt like the team had to be moved on more. I think Daniel Levy has absolutely, let Pochettino die there. Spurs continue their poor form in 2019, picking up just 49% of the points available to them in the period. Mourinho has come in, he steadied the ship from the outside, picking up the 4th most points since arrival, but there's underlying problems. Spurs are actually 11th in terms of most expected points in that period, suggesting that they massively overperformed. They may win the Europa League, but they're going to eventually have a bad time with Jose Mourinho, speaking for a man with experience. Now on to the top 2. How did we go? with that.
Unfortunately, Liverpool fans, I think you're going to come second again. Manchester City were too strong last season and they've strengthened their side even further with the additions of Rodri and Cancelo, reinforcing their defensive midfield and right back, arguably City's lightest positions. As well as the new signings, they'll have a fully fit Kevin De Bruyne to partner Bernardo Silva, who can feed Raheem Sterling in his new false nine role. If Liverpool had managed to add a top attacking talent like Timo Werner or Bruno Fernades, then they might be able to challenge Manchester City like they did last season. But there's been a real lack of squad development that can hurt Liverpool in the key moments.
I think this is a really interesting one. This is a really interesting position. From a statistical perspective, City had the best XG against, X points in the league. So by logic, they were slightly unlucky, maybe. But defensively, they didn't sort out their problems. You know, they needed a centre-half. Laporte being injured for a season didn't help, but having Fernandinho to play centre-back for pretty much half the season and signing, Cancelo for 60 million, only playing 1,200 minutes, not playing Phil Foden in central midfield when De Bruyne and Silva. I think Pep Guardiola's got a lot of, answering for here. I think, not using Sterling as much as a false nine was an issue, even though he scored 20 Premier League goals. That could have been 30. Yes, he grabbed 30 in all comps, but he could have been better. And I think that's the side when you've got someone like Kevin De Bruyne, his quality, creating 136 chances. The next best player was Grealish with 91. That is incredible, equaling the assist record, but should have had 22 assists if we were counting. I think City massively underperformed, and I think that goes down to Pep Guardiola's team selection and players underperforming. I think it's going to be a big summer for City. If they can recruit, they'll do all right. But credit to Jurgen Klopp. How much they improved their expected points this season was sensational, and credit to the German tactician. They'd only lost a single game when the title was officially won, and every other team had lost at least 6 at that point. Trent and Robertson continued their improvement. Trent now holds the record for most assists from fullback, again in Premier League history. Robertson continued to assist. Van Dijk was supreme at the back. Alisson was fantastic. John Henderson in central midfield had a very good year. But this leads us on to an interesting point. Get in the comments below. Should he have been Football Writers Player of the Year? Yes, man of the match in the Champions League final. Unbelievable. But 4 goals, 5 assists, decent from central midfield, but he only started 26 games. When you look at the likes of Trent, Salah, Vardy, De Bruyne, Player of the Year for me has got to be one of those guys, and it's a bit of a weird one. It's almost like football writers, they catch up. Like Jordan Henderson, man of the match Champions League final. We should have been speaking about him in that Ballon d'Or conversation. We weren't. So we've kind of given him this award when in fact, he's not played over 3,000 minutes in the Premier League. Bit of a weird one. I'd give it to Kevin De Bruyne personally, but this Liverpool team absolutely fantastic. Maybe not as expansive as the swashbuckling teams that won the Champions League. A little bit more control. Klopp's moved them on. Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold ranked number 2 and 3 in the league for progressive passes. Slightly changed. They're now on the ball a lot deeper as well as being in the final third. It's all about the flanks. Roberto Firmino had a slightly disappointing campaign. I think Mane and Salah didn't score as many goals as they did in the previous year, but this Liverpool team, fantastic. Congratulations for Liverpool winning the Premier League, but next season's going to be different. And there are my predictions, guys. That is it for today's video. I've been Statman Dave. Make sure, of course, to get your reactions to your predictions in the comments below. Where did I do well? Where did I do badly? Get all that good stuff in the comments below and subscribe for goddamn more content. And like that video. You guys have been amazing this year. Much love and see you next time.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.